The popularity of mushrooms continues to, well, mushroom, but there's one gaining more attention than any other. This little fella. Lion's mane is scientifically proven to boost your brain. Research shows that this shaggy looking mushroom supports brain health by encouraging new growth up here in your noggin. But more on all that in a moment. Let's get growing. It's easy to grow your own lion's mane, and the simplest way of all is to use a kit like this. Now you still need to get the growing conditions just right, so it's not completely straightforward, but let me show you. Now if I get this out of the box, the exciting bit, we can have a look, and my goodness, this is really raring to go. The white here is the mycelium, or the roots if you like, of the fungus, and this is really well colonised, so this really is champing at the bit to get out and grow. In the wild, lion's mane grows on dead or dying hardwood, so the substrate used in these kits is a mixture of hardwood sawdust along with a little added bran for extra oomph. All of this stuff here should really power up our shroom's growth. So the first job is to squeeze out as much air as possible from this bag. And to start with that, I'm going to cut a couple of little sort of holes in the corners here like that so the air can escape. And now I'm going to sort of roll it down nice and tightly to kind of get the bag close to the substrate like this. You feel it coming out the holes there. Nice and tight and down like that, and then just secure it in place with some tape. Perfect. Now, the reason for doing this is we're squeezing out all the air because we want to encourage the mushroom bodies to form out the front here. And to do that, we need to make some more holes. You can really see all of these mushrooms here already starting to form. So by making the cut along the front here, we're going to force them out. So the first job is a kind of 4-inch or 10 centimetre cut along the top like that. And I'm also going to cut a little cross along the front here, about just over 1 inch or 3 centimetres in size. Now most mushrooms famously like it nice and humid, and lion's mane is no exception. It likes it between about 70 to 90% humidity. That can be tricky indoors if you've got the heating blaring or you are in a dry climate. Some growers get around this by putting their mushroom blocks in special humidity domes, but this kit comes with something even more low-tech and straightforward. Just a plastic bag, and that's certainly all you need for something on this scale. Just like any organism, mushrooms need to breathe, so what I'm going to do to prepare the bag is actually cut some holes in it so we can get good air exchange. So I've just folded the bag in half like that, and then I'm going to cut 2 kind of circles in it by just cutting along in little semicircles like this. When I fold out the bag now, we've got our little circles here, and they're going to be on both sides of the bag. I'm going to put it over our mushroom block here, but what we don't want is the bag sitting on either the block or the mushrooms as they start to grow. We want it nice and clear of that. So one way to do that is to simply spike in some skewers like this, which will kind of hold the bag up and off. Kind of looks like a cute little alien with its sort of antennae. Woo! And then fold out our bag, and over it goes. I've got a couple of other kits here which are a bit further grown on, and I just show you here how I'm keeping the bag off. I just kind of pull it out like that so that it's not sitting on the mushrooms themselves. And the same here, I've actually used a couple of chopsticks on this one to keep the bag out. To ensure enough humidity in here, I've got to introduce some moisture, and for that I'm going to just spray it nice and finely with this fine mist sprayer. Now I need to spray just the bag itself and the face of the fruiting block, but not the mushrooms as they start to form, because we don't want those to be wet, which could potentially cause issues with things like mould. So we want to keep the mushrooms themselves dry, but the environment all around it nice and kind of dripping like this. So I'm spraying the bag, and then face of the fruiting block like this, and then down onto the plate. And what that'll do is, obviously, I'm trapping it with the bag, and that will create that nice humidity we're after. Now you don't need to really fold the bag in to trap the moisture. It can still be quite loose because obviously we need this to breathe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mist this twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And how do you know if it's got enough humidity? Well, obviously look for the mist on the face of the bag like this. And if it's dried out in any way, we'll get on a mist because they really do need that high humidity. Once the mushrooms start to form and grow out from the fruiting block here, I need to be careful not to get those wet because that can cause issues with maybe mold and things like that. You want to keep the mushrooms themselves dry. A lot of people might think that mushrooms don't need light to grow, but in fact most do. But they don't want to be in direct sunshine, and this is a south-facing window, so I'm going to put it at the back here where it's in indirect natural light, and that will help them to flourish. Getting the right temperature is important too, and we want to aim for a temperature of between 60 to 70 Fahrenheit, which is 16 to 21 degrees. That's the optimal temperature range, and indoors, well, that should be perfectly doable. But if you do get wide whipsawing temperatures, maybe just keep a track of things with a maximum minimum thermometer. Now, it's really important to keep your mushrooms away from any heat sources, which might dry out the air. That's crucial. Keep them away from both direct sunshine and heat. Like most mushrooms, lion's mane grows pretty quickly, going from the tiny baby mushrooms or pins to full fruiting bodies within about 2 weeks or up to 3. Now let's have a look what we've got here. Right, reveal this. We've got a good sized mushroom here. Now there are actually different strains of lion's manes. Some produce more pronounced little tendrils that kind of drip down, others don't. This is probably a couple of days too soon to harvest, but I'm really keen to get on and cook with it and show you what we can do with it. So let's go and harvest it. Now the best way to do that is to grab the whole mushroom like this, get your hand right behind and then give it a twist like that, and it should come away. And we'll tidy up the exit point shortly. But that's got a good weight to it, so we've got some real mushroomy goodness here. Now the fruiting block in here is by no means done. There's life in the old dog yet, and we can encourage a second and even a third flush. But to do that, we need to make a few preparations. The first job is to cut out all the remnants of the old mushroom that we've just harvested and just take it back to where the growing medium is, so you can see that it's sort of completely brown underneath. And that will just create space for the new mushroom to form and sort of burst out from here. There we go. You can see now that it's kind of gone back to the kind of brown medium there, the substrate. Next job is to gauge how heavy it is. And if it's in any way dry, what we can do is just re-soak it by popping it in water for a couple of hours. You can speed along your next crop of mushrooms by just popping the block in the fridge overnight. Now what this does is simulate the cooler nighttime conditions, kind of waking your mushrooms back up again and stirring them into life for the second flush. Right, with that all prepped, now we can just put it back, in this case back in its box, and then do exactly as we did before. Keep it out of direct sunshine, in indirect light, and then keep it nice and well misted with this sort of a cover here like that. The next crop of mushrooms will be a little bit slower, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but you should still get a really good harvest. Now, if you happen to see lion's mane growing wild, well, that's incredibly rare and lucky you, but don't be tempted to harvest it. It really is quite rare, and where I am, it's actually illegal to harvest it, but growing it like this is of course fine. Now, what about all those incredible brain boosting benefits that are claimed? Well, one study in 2019 gave lion's mane extract to one group over a period of 12 weeks and found measurable improvements in concentration, memory, and general mental function when compared to the control group. You see, lion's mane actively repairs nerve tissue in the brain, especially in the hippocampus area of the brain, which is responsible for memory, concentration, and emotions. For this reason, lion's mane is showing early signs of promise for helping with progressive brain disorders like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, and dementia because of its ability to re-stimulate adult brain cell production. It can also help with ADHD because it reduces feelings of agitation, and research has shown great promise with things like depression and general anxiety. Lion's mane has also been shown to improve sleep and could even help improve your general immune system by supporting heart health and fighting against some forms of cancer. Is there anything this mushroom can't do? I actually take lion's mane mushroom myself for concentration, mental clarity, focus, and to get me into that flow state for work. It's no wonder that this is called the brain boosting mushroom. Now, of course, I'm no doctor, and if you want to take it, you should seek independent medical advice. To harness the full potency of this brain boosting mushroom, I would need to make an extract from it. This would make it more potent and make the substances responsible for its brain boosting power more available. But that takes time, and dehydrating your mushrooms is quicker and easier and will still give you plenty of those famously good health boosting benefits. So to start, I'm just slicing the mushroom as thinly as possible into little strips like this before I put them onto my dehydrating trays and into the dehydrator. And then to dehydrate them, I'm going to put them on quite a low heat because I want to preserve as much of the goodness as possible. If it's really high, it could sort of fry them a bit and reduce some of that benefit. And set it to the low heat. So we'll leave these here to dehydrate for about 8 to 10 hours. If you don't have a dehydrator, just pop them onto a tray and into the oven set to the lowest temperature possible, potentially with the door just slightly ajar, and check very, very frequently because you don't want them to burn in any way, just dry out. Once the mushrooms are fully dried, just grind them up into a fine powder and then store them in an airtight jar, perhaps with a packet of food grade silica crystals to keep it all dry, and store in a dark, dry place. I can add this pretty much to any recipe, or even use it to make a lion's mane tea or coffee. I've saved some to cook. Now apparently cooked lion's mane has a texture a bit like crab or lobster, and some say it tastes a bit like crab too. Well, let's see. So I've got a pan on the heat here, a medium heat, and the first job is just to drive off some of the excess moisture. So there's no oil in here, I'm just putting them in as they are to dry fry them a bit. I'm gonna keep them here until they slightly brown around the edges, and then I'll remove them. Right, I think these guys are good to go, so I'm gonna take them out the pan here and then just add a little bit of butter, melt that down, and then cook them in the butter with a pinch of salt. Great, let's get them back in. Smelling quite good already, actually. That looks so good, doesn't it? I'd say it's actually more meaty in texture, really moreish. Lion's mane is fairly easy to grow, especially when using a kit, but you can take things a step further by making your own growing substrate and even your own grain spawn. I'm quite tempted to give it a try, so do let me know in the comments if you would like to see that, and I may well do it and then let you know how I get on. In the meantime, head here for my Back to Basics guide to growing oyster mushrooms in a bucket. It's simple to do, and I have to say I was really blown away by the results when growing them like this. I'll catch you next time.